we go, and I'll turn it over to James.
Awesome. So you guys can hear me okay?
You're all muted, so
Oh, okay.
but if you can hear somebody, if you want to either say something or put it on chat.
You're good.
Great.
Right. So this might be a little confusing in parts because like it kind of goes in different areas of the tree. So just kind of like bear with me. But Belial is what you would call a celebrity spirit. He is extremely famous to the Jews, the Christians, and Black magicians alike. Belial is the literal personification of Satan to both the Jews and the Christians. He is mentioned in many different grimoires throughout the centuries, including but not limited to the Bible, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Ars Goetia, the Lesser Key of Solomon. In the Christian interpretation of Belial, he was created second after Lucifer. He is one of the 4 archkings of hell, and his direction is the northern quadrant, making him the Lord of the earth. He is the 68th spirit mentioned in the Ars Goetia, and he governs over 80 legions of destroying angels. His name translates to without worth, without a master, the abyss, the lawless one, and he who is the master of lies. Some people go as far to say Beelzebub is his name in the Grimoire Vera, making Beelzebub a mask for Belial. In the Goetia, Belial is described as coming in the form of 2 angels riding a chariot of fire, one light, one dark. On the Kabbalistic tree, Belial has connections to several different spheres, despite there not being a lot of historical information written about him. The most common placement of Belial is in the the most common placement of Belial on the tree would be the sphere of Hokmah or the Gagliel Tephoth. That's the top most right corner on the tree. Hokmah on the bright tree is the first form of male divinity. This would give Belial deep associations with Adam, the first man. In one of the Kabbalistic stories, Adam Kadmon would be the highest and most divine form of men when he is unified with God. But when Adam Kadmon stumbles and falls, he becomes, he goes through what is called a name change, and he becomes Adam Belial in his separation from God. To some, this gives explanation to the 2 faces of Belial, one being very, very bright, the face of Hokmah, and the other one being very, very dark, the face of Gagliel. The planetary sphere of Gagliel, Hokmah, is essentially the same thing as Uranus. Belial has like deep associations with the planetary sphere of Uranus, as well as at least 3 others. He kind of goes in several different areas all around the tree. One of his other main associations that people like to connect him to would specifically be the sphere of Tiferet. The sphere of Tiferet on the dark tree is the sphere of Belphegor or the sphere of Tiferet on the bright tree is the sphere of Belphegor on the dark tree. And in the picture on the right side of the image, that sphere would be the Gorion sphere in the center.
Yeah, they changed the names on some of the Qliphoth in different traditions, so you'll get different names here and there.
Yeah, like the center sphere on the tree is like Christ consciousness. That's where you get beings such as Jesus and whatnot, entities that receive all light and all darkness. And it's very, very ironic for an entity like Belial to be associated with the sphere of Tiferet. But in the dark sense, this would make him like the Antichrist. He would be essentially like the dark sun in association with that sphere. Christians throughout history have always argued that the name of the devil is the Antichrist. So I kind of think that's why they associate Belial with the sphere of Tiferet. It is essentially where all light and all darkness passes through. And this position would place Belial at like the pinnacle of all knowledge and like your heart, where both darkness and light resides. And it kind of gives a further explanation to the two heads of Belial, with one being light and one being dark, with his dark head being associated with the Antichrist and his light head being associated with Christ. Now, in some circles as well, Belial is associated with the sphere of Yesod. Now, the sphere of Yesod is the sphere that is second from the bottom, right after Malkut. Now, Yesod, that essentially is the sphere where that is the sphere that is associated with the moon. It is associated with the astral plane, with ghosts, the dead. This sphere as well is where all dreams come from. So with Belial's placement on this sphere, this would represent his dominion over the dead, over dreams, over ghosts, that sort of thing. Yesod as well also contains many different secret passageways throughout the tree. Yesod, essentially on the bright tree, it would be Yesod, but on the dark tree, Yesod is known as Deot, or essentially Deot would be like the secret passageway or the abyss that exists within Yesod. And that is like where Belial rules as the gatekeeper in that sphere. Now, on the dark tree, you can see that same sphere is called Gamliel. Gamliel essentially is like the nightmare realm, which is where Belial famously rules over as well. Now, the final sphere that is associated with Belial would be Malkut at the very, very bottom. And this essentially explains his designation over the earth. Belial is, in many different stories and associations, is married to Lilith. And Lilith is the name of the bottommost sphere on both the tree of light and the tree of darkness. Lilith is like both the goddess and also the realm, essentially. And with Belial's placement over Malkut, again, it would make him like the Lord of the earth, the master of all material matters that happen in the earth. He essentially is like the administrator of worldly powers. So he would be like the one who places politicians into power. He essentially would be the one who like really gives any position of power. Kings and queens. Mm-hmm. He essentially is also famous as well for punishing people who abuse their positions of power. Belial, essentially with his rule over the world, is also considered to be like the master of flesh, the master of the physical body. He's very, very famous for being able to both heal and also to poison. He essentially is like the, if I were to associate him with like God, he would be like the wrath of God, or essentially like the male form that is like the separation of God, like Adam, who is essentially deciding to go off on his own, to do his own thing, in a similar way that Lilith decides to go off on her own to do her own thing. Belial has a lot of similarities to Lilith in that sense, in the sense that he's very, very independent. He doesn't like to be ruled over by anyone. He essentially is his own master, governs his own realm, that sort of thing. And with his dominion over the earth, he just has a lot of connections and associations with Lilith. Now, let's see where I was. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to talk about was the sigil of Belial, the one at the top, essentially, where it looks like the tower. I've been told by other occultists that that essentially would represent Belial's house, where he resides as like the king of essentially hell.
The Tower of Edom.
Yeah, the Tower of Edom. The Tower of Edom is like the tower that contains all of the evils of hell, the 7 deadly sins, the kings of Edom that essentially are appointed over the 4 corners of hell. Belial is like the warden or the king of that position. His name at the bottom, I didn't really have time to decipher his name, but I did notice that the final letter in his name is Lamed at the far left. And Lamed essentially represents being pushed towards something. It's heavily associated with the energies of separation and being independent. And Belial is very, very famous for essentially separating you from what is not needed, putting you into a state to where you are forced to be independent on your own. That essentially in and of itself is another deep connection that he has to Lilith with the 2 Lameds in his name. Another thing that I've experienced with Belial is essentially he would be literally like the master of shadow. Belial is like, what I mean by that is every person has like their own shadow that would represent all of their anger, all of their fears. It's like their personal Satan. In the same way that everyone has a guardian angel that watches over them, they also have what is called an unholy guardian angel. And the unholy guardian angel essentially is like the being that sits on your left side that pushes you into temptation. It is like the part of you that contains all of the 7 deadly sins, that contains all of your anger, your fear, that essentially it's like a wall that stands in front of you and your enlightenment. And what Belial is he is like the being who is in control of that force. He like stands behind your shadow and places a leash upon it and keeps it under control, under his power, so that it doesn't, the evil dark side of you doesn't completely take over, like doesn't completely control everything that you are, everything that you're doing. Essentially with him, the way that I view him for a sorcerer or a magician, like the reason why someone would want to work with that is to gain control of your shadow self, to gain more of a realization of your own darkness.
And
So,
divinity.
yeah, and divinity, so that essentially these things are not conquering you, not ruling over you. Like he puts you into a position to where you're able to overcome certain things.
Unless he hates you and then he gives them to you.
Well, yeah, but it really very much depends on the kind of person that you are. If you go about it in the way of enlightenment, like if you're reaching out to a demon for help on your spiritual journey to help you along, then it very well will help you along. But if you're reaching out to it for a selfish reason, depending on how you're doing that, if you're not giving an offering, depending on how you ask, it may or may not be inclined to help you. But if your intentions are centered around moving towards enlightenment, then it essentially would be more inclined to help. A spirit like Belial is very much a spirit of knowledge. You know what I mean? He's a teacher.
His association with Hokman
Yeah,
means
Hok-
wisdom.
Yeah, his associations with Hokmah, Dayot, the moon, Tiferet, all of which are wisdom and knowledge. Yeah, I just feel as though I don't know. I just feel as though he's kind of been given a bad rap throughout history. Essentially, every negative name attributed to Belial, any negative title that is attributed to him, really the opposite of that title is also true. For example, some people call him like the master of lies. This would be true because he is the master of the world. Belial, as the master of lies, knows every truth that exists in the world. He's the master of the illusion that is material reality. He can manipulate, move in and out of the illusion at any time. When it says that he is the lawless one, it just means that he essentially is not going to conform within like a specific box, like of a specific social standing. Like he sits outside of the norm. Like his children aren't really of conformity, if that makes sense. His children would be like the outsiders or the outcasts of society, people who are considered worthless to society, that sort of thing. He essentially is, the way that I would view him again would be like he would take what is worthless and make it into something that is worthy, if that makes sense.
That reminds me a lot of Lilith.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds a lot like Lilith.
Like every time
Yeah.
I research him, I always think about Lilith. He literally is very simple, like the male form in some way.
Mhm.
You know?
And he's very virile. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Richard asked a question asking if you've worked with the sigil in circle or put it within a triangle or bound it to a vessel or object, or worked with, it just scrolled off my screen, hold on, or worked through Cyprian to work with Belial. So how have you worked with Belial, I guess is his question.
I've been led to Belial through Hecate. Like she was really the one that connected me to him. And I on it like Cyprian, like sometimes, but like Hecate and Belial are really the two spirits that I work with the most.
And Belial is her son.
Yeah, to me, Belial would be like her dark son.
Primal Craft says he's her son.
Well, Primal Craft says that he's her son, but like with Hecate represented as like the primordial dark mother of all chaos, she would be the mother of all of the demons. But like Belial, like really I was led to Belial by Hecate. Like I've done a lot of research into that spirit, but it was Hecate who really made the connection and gave me even more of an insight, because really she completely changed my viewpoint into how he was going to be. Like I honestly thought he was going to be extremely wild, crazy, but he's really honest. He's really honest. He's frank with everything that he says to me. He's one of the most physical spirits that I've ever worked with. Items, I've mainly attached him to jewelry or to bones. Every item that I use with Belial, I only ever use with him, because I usually, when I work with him, I get the feeling that he's very, very picky about the things that he wants. He accepts things as gifts and keeps them as gifts. Like when you give something or set something on his altar, then that essentially is his item that you're using for him. This necklace, I recently made a necklace for him, and I called him in ritual in the name of Akate and gave it to him as an offering. I get like different things like that. I try to come up with like different artistic things. I will connect to him through his sigil by drawing it. I have an ink that I use specifically for him. I will essentially use like it's blood magic, like I've mixed my blood in with the ink. But anytime I'm working with his sigil, I will draw that sigil with that ink and essentially like do whatever I'm going to do with it. I've drawn his sigil and placed it in picture frames and used it that way. There's several different ways. Recently, I drew his sigil on the forehead of a skull and consecrated it to him as one of his gifts. He's he just loves to, he's very protective. So like the more attention and devotion and time that you give to him, the more
Protective.
the more protective of a spirit that he is. Because essentially, like the way that Belial protects you, like he truly is the master of darkness, because he will utilize all of the powers of evil to defend you, like offensively. And you'll just be essentially like his student or disciple that he pushes along on your spiritual journey. Have I answered all of that? I don't know.
Yeah, no, he said makes sense. He did ask what kind of skull you.
Oh, so the skull, that's a very good question. So one of the first times I called upon Belial, it was actually very scary. I was in it was in our old house, and we were in, or I was in the altar room, and I was sitting in front of Ekate's altar calling upon Belial, and I was very uneasy about it. It was very dark, and the energies that I got when I was done with my evocation, it was like a dark shroud fell upon me. Like the room was already dark, but it just like became darker once like the presence fell upon me. And I had like a scrying mirror. It wasn't black, it was just like a regular clear little circle mirror that I had behind Hecate's statue. And I utilized that at the time as a scrying mirror. And I looked up into it, and I could see movement from behind me in the mirror. And essentially what I saw was a tall black cloak with a deer skull on the top for a head. And the horns essentially were not like, they weren't like gigantic. They were just like two pointed horns going up with one longer than the other. And it wasn't really like a menacing feeling that I got from him. It was just like an I'm here and I'm listening kind of presence that I got from him.
It was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary.
Yeah.
But essentially, like ever since then, like working and connecting to him, the more that I do it, the easier it becomes, because you become more and more used to his energy. Like he essentially will, he works with you in dreams. So essentially he will start to just show you and lead you to different things through like mental images, through dreams that you may have. A dream essentially that may not even be associated with him at all, but then later on you then realize that it was, like just things like that. But yeah, I know I went completely off topic, but that's why I got the skull, is because in my vision, it looked like the skull that I got, that I saw in the store, looks like the skull that I saw in my vision for Belial.
It's good
I
stuff.
just want to, I just want to say, I really enjoy this conversation between you, Brandon, and Mark. You guys give awesome presentations, but I wanted to ask you just real quickly, what kind of offerings do you guys give to them?
Oh, all kinds. I mean, really all kinds of things. Art,
Liquor.
jewelry, Yeah, water, liquor, food.
Marijuana.
Yeah, like things that you like, they are also going to like as well. But you have to keep in mind, especially when you're working with someone like Lilith, that she is a woman and she's going to like pretty things. Whereas Belial, to me, he likes things that are centered around the practice of magic. Like he wants things that you're going to do magic with him with and only him. You know what I mean?
So a pendulum would be a great.
Yeah, a pendulum would be a good gift. Just real like a dagger would be a good gift.
Some nice incense, but not any of the, like some real herbs.
Or maybe one an incense that you crush up for him specifically and give to him as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just those things like that. Like you can be creative with it. Because like in the modern age, you can't really do a lot of the things that they used to do in the past. But essentially like that's like what I do is I just mainly it's art. It's like offerings of liquid and the chalices, or it essentially would be food.
And my experience, and not with Belial specifically, my experience is it's about you giving time and effort. So it's something that makes you think of them and works with them, and that you feel drawn to give them to in a way, because it's all about you giving of yourself. Because if it's, it used to be back, our ancestors gave like, they in a farm, they gave the stuff they were going to eat and gave it to the deity, where we may not have that. I mean, we can just go to Kroger and get what we want. So it's sort of like stuff that you would like because it's putting that effort in. I think that's my experience.
Yeah, especially if it's like a sacrifice.
Yeah, like say if you had your last cigarette in the box and you know that he likes to smoke, that would be a fantastic offering to sit and blow the smoke and you're giving of yourself something you want to him. It tends to reap a reward.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Sure. Did you have more? I don't want to. Oh, okay. So we'll open it up now to questions and discussion beyond what we've already done. I did want to say, so I've been working on my new book, and part of that is the paths on the tree of life, which are the letters. So I was looking at his name while you were talking, and Belial or Belial, depending on how you pronounce it, is Beit, Lamed, Yod, Ayin, Lamed. Beit means house. Lamed means ox goad, or that which drives you. Yod is the spirit of God. Ayin is the eye. It's called the eye that does not speak but sees. And Lamed again is the ox goad. So I would translate it to the house that drives you to see God's spirit and then drives you, and it's open-ended because it doesn't specify where it drives you.
Because it's your choice.
It's your choice. Exactly.
Oh, I love that.
Exactly.
It has two serpents. The Lamed is also associated with the serpent.
Right.
It ends with the serpent, and
Yeah, and like Lilith has two Lameds and a Yod, so there's definitely relation there. And I just wanted to speak a little bit to the bright tree and the dark tree. The bright tree, of course, is what is used primarily in Hebraic Kabbalah, but also in ritual magic, Golden Dawn, OTO, Hermeticism. I mean, anything. We use it as a Gnostic Kabbalah, meaning we don't use it specifically Judaic, even though we do use those pieces because they're part of it. The tree of shadows, or the tree of Klopath, is the tree that is not mentioned so much in Jewish. They mention in passing, but don't go into it very much in Jewish tradition. But it's been picked up a lot by occultists, and there are some Jewish texts that actually do talk to it, but it's not quite as drawn out as the tree of life. So that's why you'll see different names for different spheres. The spheres on the tree of life are Sephirot, spheres of light. The spheres on the tree of shadow are Klipoth, which are husks of darkness. they're mirror trees. They're the same. But it said one is the backside of the other. It said the one is the shadow of the other. The shell of it. Yeah. So what it really, the way I see it is the tree of life is mercy. The tree of shadow is severity, even though they both have pillars of that. They're sort of the extremes of it. And I really believe that in a non-dual way of working, I work with the tree of life most, but then I jump into the tree of Kliphoff to look at my shadow. As James mentioned, go there and look at like for instance, Gamaliel, I have trouble pronouncing this, Gamaliel, the second sphere is the obscene ones is its name. Well, that sounds, occultists love to use things that are shocking, but it's really about the things in your mind, as James mentioned also. It's dreams, it's the astral plane. So it's the things that you hide from yourself even. It's the desires that if you suppress them, go sideways. So it's not to go revel in that, it's to go look at it and say, what are the things I'm suppressing? How do I deal with them? So that's the thing of the dark tree. And I'm real passionate about this right now because my new book is all about Kabbalah, and I have the bright tree and the dark tree, the bright paths and the dark paths. So this was perfect timing for me. But let's turn it over to all of you. Do you have any questions or anything you want to delve deeper into or just want to know? I know the topic of demons seems harsh because in Western culture, we've been programmed to think the demonic is just, bad, evil, and the angelic is good and bright. Well, the angelic can be just as horrifying as the demonic. Too much mercy is just as bad as too much severity. You have to have balance. So turn it over to all of you. I'm done talking.
So I have a question, and I can't wait for your book to come out, Mark. I really am excited for that book, but I just wanted to ask. Somebody had told me in my studies or whatever. I think I read it someplace that Belial and Lucifer is the same person, but they said that Lucifer was actually Lilith and Belial combined into one, which is how they got Baphomet. And then they said that when it broke apart, that then she broke herself into two entities of male and female.
I could see how that could work in their cosmology, but in Kabbalah, there actually is no Lucifer at all. But Belial is mentioned constantly.
In Primal Craft, it says that the first angel to fall from heaven is Lucifer.
Yes,
and
but
then Belial is taken.
Yeah, but the thing about it, anytime that you hear Lucifer mentioned, it is coming from a Christian cosmology.
Yep.
Because Lucifer actually has nothing to do with
Judaism.
Belial, Samael, or Lilith at all.
Or Judaism.
Judaism whatsoever.
There's no
because
Lucifer.
He's not mentioned. It's just in the modern age, people tend to mix these things together because Judaism and Christianity is so conflated with each other. So essentially, the way that I view it, I view Lucifer and Belial as completely separate entities. And the reason is because they exist in different spheres. Like they are related, absolutely. They are completely and totally related. I view one as the light, which is Lucifer, and one as the darkness, which is Belial. Lucifer essentially would be like your soul.
He's also Keter.
Yeah, he would be like the light of your soul.
And Lucifer
whereas
isn't
Belial
associated with Hokmah or any of those spheres.
Neither. Whereas Belial would be in direct association with your flesh. So Belial being the flesh is darkness, whereas Lucifer being the light,
the spirit.
is
East.
Yeah, and Lucifer is in the east, Belial is in the north. Like it's just, if you look at the Kabbalah, even where Lucifer is involved in the Kabbalah.
But that's only because people are putting it in there.
Yeah,
it's not really there.
But like if you look at it where they are, they're separate beings.
Yeah, and so the confusion there is, as James and Brandon said, Lucifer was not in Judaism. Samael is what is closest to what Christians call the devil, poison of God. And Samael is in some legends, Jewish legends, the male side of Lilith. Just like Adam and Eve were one being that were split, Lilith and Samael were one. And Baphomet, you're right, some see Baphomet as that combined being of Lilith and Samael coming back together.
But none of those have anything to do with Belial.
Yeah, and Lucifer, the reason they came up with Lucifer is Lucifer was a Greco-Roman deity of associated with the sun. He was the morning star, where Venus was the evening star. But what happened is there's a Bible verse that says, oh, you something like morning star fell from heaven. And that word in Roman, in Latin, it was called Lucifer. So they started associating the fallen angel with Lucifer. And now that we've had so many centuries of people associating Lucifer with quote, the devil, Samael and Lucifer have become almost like superimposed on each other. People, when they talk about Lucifer, they're usually talking about attributes of Samael. But because it's happened for so many years, I think there is a Lucifer that's almost Samael because people have merged it. So it's a very confusing topic, Kelly, because there's, over the centuries, it goes one way and then another and comes back. And so they're all dark masculine, but the particulars in mythology is very confusing because it depends on what century you're talking. So after all of that, hopefully that helped a little bit.
It did. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. That is one of the most confusing topics because online you'll see people saying, all kinds of things about Lucifer that are Samael. And I'm not saying they're wrong in their consciousness. They've contacted this being that's Lucifer that has been connected there. But if you want to talk myth, it's not Lucifer, it's Samael.
Like the thing, I mean, even if you look back at the tree where Lucifer is involved, Samael and Lucifer are in different spheres.
Yep.
Like Lucifer would be associated with either Tiferet or Venus.
If you walked up to a Jew 2,000 years ago and said Lucifer, they would have no idea what you're talking
or
about.
If they were worldly, they might say, oh yeah, that's that Roman deity, the morning star. But now he's been associated. If you watch the show Lucifer, it's interesting because as much as that show's a comedy drama, somebody's been doing some homework because in one episode, someone calls Lucifer Samael. And he's like, basically like, yeah, that's my name, but I don't want to go there. So it's interesting the way there is a connection, but it's more modern. Okay. What other?
I actually watched that episode. I really like that show.
I do too. I just watched, at first I was a little bit like, and I watched the whole what's out there right now and really like the way they've handled like Eve and just a lot of it. And for fictional show that's supposed to be funny and quirky, they actually have some things sort of right.
True, I agree with you.
Other questions, comments, anything anyone wants to know about?
I think you presented that really well. I know there's so many different emanations and so many interpretations and relationships to spirit. When we get into that kind of operation where we're touching our inner shadow or our inner workings, kind of working out the baggage, that it's a powerful thing when you're trying to approach it from a space of spiritual awakening and coming at it with sincerity of heart. Cross culture, I've noticed that coming at these things with intent, how the universe to oblige you, that definitely has a crucial impact on the relationship building and how that spirit responds. And I really like how you presented that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was great, James. Thank you, Richard, for calling out. I think James did a great job.
Yeah,
I know you're not the most comfortable talking in a group, but you've done great. And great information. I truthfully do not know that much about him, and it was very helpful. It made me, understand, my connections mostly with Samael because I've done so much Lilith work, but it really helped. I mean, I see Belial actually as more of a Lilithian character than Samael.
I know. Samael, to me, like I see him as a Lilithian, but I see him so directly linked with Lilith, almost as if they're literally the exact same
And he
being.
seems distant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
is that
I
my phone?
totally,
Sorry.
totally agree.
Do either of you have any books either on Samael or Bilal that you would recommend, like, for reading?
I mean, the books that I wrote down are, I mean, I really like the Primal Craft series, although it's not for everyone.
And it's expensive
It's
because you got to
very
get it online
Yeah,
on eBay.
yeah. Like the Primal Craft series, essentially with Belial, has some of the best descriptions of working with him anywhere. There's also another book that's more affordable that's really good that I really like is Demonolatry by S. Connolly. His books on witchcraft and practice in general are great. They're very practical, very easy to understand. An even darker one would be Chants of Belial by Austin Austin. If you're looking for things to like prayers or things to say, but like again, those are very, very dark interpretations.
Mhm.
Demonolatry kind of has more of like
The technical and
technical, yeah.
Mhm.
Another-
I've actually read that book and I highly recommend it to anybody.
love it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Damon Barzai writes a bunch of stuff on
Cliff Off.
Yeah, Cliff Off in general. He has a few books called Belial, I believe. Another one would be Bal Cadmon.
Mhm.
I really like his stuff. Any of his stuff on the Kabbalah, angels or demons is really, really good. Well researched.
Yeah, and he has a book on Jewish demons, spirits, and something that is really good.
I need to
Um,
read that one.
Yeah, we have it. His books tend to be sort of short, but that one's actually pretty meaty.
Mhm.
It's a good one. And I like for the Cliff Off, and I can't remember the dude who wrote it. I'm so bad with names. Cliff Off, Kabbalah, and Galetia.
I know
Boy,
exactly
gosh.
what I can't.
Let me look it up. I can't believe I don't know.
I know his name. I just can't.
I just like looked at
Literally.
that book. I can't remember his name. But it's really well done. He actually does a little bit of looking
Thomas Carlson.
Carlson.
Yes, and he does a little bit of looking at the bright tree, just a really like a sentence or two about the bright spirit
That's probably the best book to
to
get.
explain the
know.
dark. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
Cliff, Kabbalah, Cliff Off, and Goetic Magic by Thomas Carlson.
Carlson is really one of the best ones, to be honest.
And it's not
Like,
expensive.
yeah.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon as a paperback.
Mhm.
Yeah, Primal Craft, the problem is it's limited edition, so it's really hard to get those books.
Hard to get.
Queen of Hell is amazing, but yeah,
Mhm.
very expensive.
Thank you.
Yep, of course. Other questions, comments, thoughts?
Wait a minute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I had a few things for James when we wrap up. I had some questions for him pertaining to Hecate. So there was some things that kind of happened with me that I'd like to kind of touch with you on before we wrap up. Like maybe even on a private call or something like that.
Yeah, if you want.
Cool. Other questions, comments about this session or anything we're going to do or?
You said what you're gonna do.
Yes, what we're going to do for the next sessions.
Okay, yes, if you could go into a little bit of, talk about that.
Sure. So I know Tiffany asked us to do Santa Morte. We actually were trying to line up an expert, but he's unavailable. So I'll probably do a run at it. I know enough just to be dangerous. It's not like some where I won't do it because I don't know anything. So, but I'll do something on Santa Morte. I think after that will be a ritual. We'll probably do whatever ritual it's time for at that point, based on the holiday, and we'll pick a deity to go with it. And then I know Brandon is currently working with Korakula, who's a wrathful Buddhist deity, very Lilithy, Hekate-ish. So I know he's working on that and may do something on her. And then we will, as I said, we'll talk about anything that we know something about. I eventually, when my book's closer, will want to talk about something about that, because in it I have the Kabbalah, the Paz, the dark tree, and I have Lilith associated with every one of the spheres. So an aspect of her. So that'll be something I'll want to do something with. I'm not quite sure yet. And then we'll take ideas, anything anybody has. If we know about it, we'll talk about it. Or if any of you would like to present, you are more than welcome to contact me and we can talk about that. And it doesn't always have to be dark. We can do the nice, I don't want to say nicer, the sunnier stuff. We just don't tend to know much about that comparatively. Although I can talk Gnosticism and bright tree.
I mean, I can do Greek gods.
Yeah.
Because I know pretty much a lot about.
Rachel.
So there's a guy. So there's a guy that I know that used to work. He used to do presentations at the Magical Druid. His name is Anthony. I can send you his information. He knows a lot about African, like Haitian kind of magic, and he knows about Santa Muerte. He gives incredible speeches about her.
Okay, yeah, please. I'll contact and see if either he would want to talk or give me some stuff to use if he doesn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Yeah, just shoot me a message. That would be great. And Rachel suggested Kali, which is certainly doable. I do go to India for my job. I've never been in a Kali temple because they're only in Calcutta. But I have been in dark mother goddess temples in India, and it's pretty amazing. So, and I do feel like I could do it justice.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Kali is definitely a possibility too.
Yeah,
So
she's a great idea.
yeah, great idea, Rachel. And I'd probably throw in some things like Chamunde and some of the other dark ones that are related to her. Good idea. Somebody had suggested Venus or Aphrodite, and I don't have a problem doing that. I just don't know enough. I don't know if James feels comfortable.
I probably could, cause I've worked with like the sphere of Venus, like spirit, like as a planetary body, but not really as like a spirit.
The goddess.
Yeah, not like the goddess. Like I've worked with a spirit from Venus, like a spirit who is directly connected to the energies of Venus and can manipulate love and whatnot. Like I know how to do Venusian energy and whatnot, but I've not directly worked with like
Aphrodite.
Yeah, like if I were to work with like the Roman or Greek pantheon, it will be mainly planetary magic. Like if I was doing Zeus, it wouldn't be called Zeus. I would be calling it Jupiter, and I would be utilizing like the Solomon seal of Jupiter on the right day. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. So I view it as that deity, that entity, but I don't really work with it in that way.
And maybe we had somebody who's a co-thing of those would be interesting. So okay, we'll look at that. Richard, you were saying something?
Yeah, I've definitely worked with planetary aspecting and used Aniel from the Heptameron to induce the Venusian types of energy. So I'm very familiar with that, especially working with Samael from that angle as well. So I definitely have some experiential with that specific approach to it from that angle.
Cool. That could be something we could do at some point between the two of you.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So for the books you recommended, I found the Goetic Magic and the Chants of Belial. What were the other two? You said Primal Craft?
Yeah,
A scorpion god.
Well, really where he's mainly featured, where you can get like the like useful information would be The Queen of Hell by Mark Ellen Smith. Like
Okay, Queen of
Hell is
Hell.
about Hecate, but it features Hecate, Belial, and Lucifer all together. Like,
And it's
And-
really good, but it's probably gonna be $100 at least.
yeah.
Okay. And the other one, what was the other Demonol? I wrote it
Damon.
weird.
Yeah, Daemonolatry by S. Connolly.
S what?
Okay, so SCO.
Connolly?
Yeah,
Thank you.
CONNALLY.
I see it now. I found it. Thank you.
Yeah, some of these books, trying to find them is interesting. Primal
I-
Quest will be the hardest. That's the name of the group that he does, but
Oh,
They're
Um,
astonishing books.
Queen of Hell is really good, but they only produced like so many hundred of them.
I
So,
got you.
yeah, they're bound, special bound and stuff. So what I do is I go to eBay and keep looking and looking until it's on pretty cheap. Because I mean, you can find it. Some of these books are crazy. I was looking at a book that somebody recommended, and it ended up being like $2,000. And I'm like, yeah, no.
Oh my.
Yeah. So I look for bargain
Yeah.
basement on some of these books. So. Other questions, comments on anything? I mean, we'll talk about anything pretty much. If not, we'll close this out. And I will post this to YouTube so people can see it who weren't here. And we'll set up an event on Witch Lab for next month coming up soon. And then Richard, you and James are going to connect, right? So I'll close this out. Okay, well, any last questions? I hate to cut anybody off, but at the same time, I know you guys all have stuff to do too, so.
No, I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you guys put together here. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We love talking about this stuff, so it's sort of selfish.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcy, for being on. Thank you, Kelly, Rachel, Ren, Richard, and thank you all just for listening and sharing energy.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That was wonderful.
Awesome.
Agreed.
Thank you all. Take care.
Take care. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Let me find the button here.
Oh.
Stop sharing. And